Hey guys, welcome back to Alaska Rural Homestead. I'm Michelle. I'm in the kitchen and I'm getting ready to make some simple raspberry syrup with the rest of the raspberries that we have. Now, I'm not even going to measure these raspberries, but there is probably, I think, about 4 cups in there. So we're going to simply pour these raspberries in here. So I'm just going to put a tad bit of water in here. That should do it. All right, so we've got our berries and we've got our water in there. Now we're just going to simply mash these berries. I've got my bowl here. So while I'm mashing the raspberries here, I've got a bottle here in my really hot water that I'm sterilizing so I can put the syrup in that container. You could also use your blender or a food processor, but I think this is just fine. So I've got a little strainer here. This is some organic cheesecloth that I have. And I'm just going to simply strain this juice from the raspberry pulp. Now, you could let this set for a few hours just to get all the juices extracted from the raspberry pulp. So we're going to let that sit for a bit. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash this out because that's going to be too low for all the juice to get extracted. Okay, so I'll just put this over here. And we will let that finish straining. So we'll see you back in a bit. Okay, so we're back and I think this is done straining as much as it's gonna be. Now at this point, if you wanted to freeze the juice, you could, but we're gonna go ahead and just make this simple syrup. Now for this recipe, we're gonna need about 2.5 cups of juice. So I've got a 2-cup measuring cup here. And we're going to put it back in the pan. That's 2 cups. Okay, so that's just a little over 1.25 cups. So we'll go with that. So we're going to put that in here. Now we need 1.5 cups of sugar. You could use any kind of sugar that you wanted, but this is pure raw organic sugar. That's about 1.5 cups. Now we're going to go ahead and put this over a medium heat so it'll start dissolving that sugar. So our syrup is heating up. It's not completely to a boil, but I have gathered some of my herbs from my garden that I'm going to put in here. I've got some thyme here. I'm going to go ahead and add thyme. And I've got this little tea strainer that I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to break this up a little bit so it will infuse more of the flavor into the syrup. I've also got some of my hops, my anise hops. I'm going to go ahead and just tear that little the few leaves up. And then I also have some sage here. And then I also have rosemary. Now I'm going to put all this in here. And while my syrup is heating up, I'm going to go ahead and stick this in there. And it will start infusing the flavors of the herbs into the syrup. Now, I love to experiment with my food. I love to pair a lot of different flavors, and I love to use my herbs from the garden. Okay, so it's just a very low boil right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off, and I'm going to take my herbs out. And I'm going to go ahead and get my bottle. Now I'm going to very gently hold this. Now this is one of those bottles that have the sealable caps. You want to make sure that your bottles are nice and sterilized and you have a fairly good cap on here. Now you can buy replaceable caps for this, but we make a lot of our own honey mead. We make other things from fruit on our homestead here. Okay, so I still have a little bit left. I'm going to see if I have another little jar to put this in. If not, I'll go ahead and use that fairly soon. Now, we're just going to close that cap. As the bottle cools and the syrup cools, it will seal this lid and it will keep really well in our nice cool basement. So we are going to go ahead and put raspberry, and we'll go ahead and put the date. And there you go. So I went ahead and bottled the rest that I had here. Now this I will be using fairly soon just because it has a cork top. It has a top on here that's made out of cork. So I'll be using this fairly soon. I'll go ahead and put this in the refrigerator. But this one will go down in the basement in our nice cold cellar where it's really cool. And once this is completely cooled, it will seal that jar and it will last for a couple months. And the great thing about this syrup is that you can make it with different types of fruit. You could use blackberries, you could use strawberries, you could use blueberries, You could use plums. So these make super gifts for the holidays also. And you could use it for much more than just pancakes or biscuits or anything like that. There you go, homemade raspberry syrup.